Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being so patient. I'm Anil Rana, representing Informa Connect. So welcome to today's webinar on the cost of COVID-19, supporting the event industry and evaluating long-term implications of the pandemic. However, despite the nature of the title, we're going to approach this as we've tried to approach everything else, with a bit of humor and as much positivity as we can muster. So why have we organized this webinar? Our hope with this webinar series, honestly, is to bring together the events industry that we at Informa Connect feel very much a part of, in order to discuss and hear from experts on the following topics: what events companies and leaders are doing to support their employees and, as a result, the overall events industry; tips and tricks in using the platforms that we've become familiar with during the lockdown, both tech and non-tech; and of course, looking long-term past this situation, thoughts and ideas on the economic impact and some ideas on how to navigate ourselves through it. I'm going to now introduce you to our engagement tool for this webinar, and the very first question actually we're going to pose and ask all of you. So have a look now at the screen you've got in front of you and follow the instructions, please. Okay, so if you just grab your phone, go to your browser, www.menti.com, and type in that code. In fact, I'm going to do that with you. Super. So the first question is, what are some things that you've been doing during the lockdown? Okay, we've got cuddling my cat, working from home, Netflix. I mean, personally speaking, I've been having far too intimate and long conversations with the Uber and Zomato delivery guy, but that's just me. Super, we're getting some more responses come in. Fantastic. So as you can see, it's reacting to what we're doing real time. Okay, I see that basically with 40 responses, Netflix is number one, followed by sleeping, and working is a short number 3. Okay, so we're doing a lot of working despite being in the lockdown. Okay, so Netflix is going low and working from home is the most popular option. And as you can see, we've got 142 responses so far. So again, for those still not sure, you simply go to your phone, go to www.menti.com and type in this code. And the reason why this is relevant is because we're going to conduct a few more polls using Menti a bit later. Super. Okay, I'll move on in just about 30 seconds, but I can see that Netflix, working from home, and reading is right at the top of the list. And reading and sleeping are close seconds. I'm trying to find some of the more obscure responses. Okay. Okay, so some of the other things are research, networking, yoga, running, chilling, learning web design, studying, praying. So it's good, fantastic. Okay, so this is the tool, this is how it works. You're all on it. Now, back to the webinar. Our moderator for today is going to be Naji El Haddad. Naji is the regional manager for UFI, the Global Association for the Exhibition Industry, in the Middle East region and Africa. In fact, some of you might know him as the exhibition director for REED's World Energy Summit, and he's had that role for almost a decade before being the regional manager for UFI. So Naji, are you with us?
Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you, Naji. We can hear you as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anil. Actually, I was, very curiously looking at what people are saying, and I think I'm also emerging as a new junior chef for now, but I've learned a lot of baking and cooking skills. Trust me, I've never imagined I can reach anywhere close to there. So one day you'll be all invited to my
Looking
restaurant.
forward to it, Naji. Okay,
Sure,
over
sure.
to you.
Yeah, thank you, Anil. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Without any further delay, I would like to welcome our speakers for today. Our first speaker for today is Ted Bloom, Director of Exhibition Services, Dubai Live. Are you with us, Ted? Okay, until Ted is getting his screen on, we'll continue with our second speaker, Sujoy Cherian. Sujoy is Chief Executive for Option One Events. Then our third speaker for today is Wilbert Heymans, Managing Director, InfoSalons Group. And last but not least, Mark Jones, General Manager, Events and Marketing, Plan B Group.
Morning, Naji.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
So it appears that maybe Naji needs to refresh his connection or so on and so forth. So Ted, Sujoy, Mark, how are you doing today?
Good, all good.
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. So we talked about, what events companies and leaders are doing sort of to support their employees. And let me just kick that off while Naji comes back. Let's start with you, Ted. What are you particularly doing? What's DXP Live working on towards that goal?
I think for most businesses, it's no good pretending the moment is about survival, but I think it's very important to survive to thrive in the future. So I think the short-term decisions you take need to be around long-term legacies that mean we can come out of this as quickly as we possibly can. And I think key to that is really communication. So I think what you need to do is make your staff a part of the narrative rather than they're just on a journey, because this whole COVID-19 thing, it can become really overwhelming for all of us. So I think being proactive with your team, making sure you build a community and just looking out for each other. And I think that means that we become more effective in our roles. So if I give you an example, I think one of the nicest things that my team have done is that we often call each other just to see how we're doing. For me personally, there are people far worse off in the world, but I haven't seen my wife in 7 weeks because she went home, got stuck in the UK. That might be good for her, but I'm not quite sure it's good for me. But I think, some of the staff phoning me and asking how it's going, when she's coming back and all those sort of things, those little things mean a lot. And I think it means as a team, we're growing in strength all the time. And just as regards the clients on that side of it, I think as we're all suppliers on this call, on this panel, and I think we've got more access than we've ever had because we've always talked about sustainable partnerships. And I think now there is a real partnership ethos going around in the fact the gap has always been quite wide, but I don't think it is as wide anymore. And I think we can engage with our customers, and we're all in this together, guys. We're going to help each other and we're going to row as one boat out of it. And I think, if people are going the other way and tip it over, then we'll fall them, because I don't think there's any time for that at the moment. So, and clients are really welcoming. A lot of clients, we're doing more engagement with clients today than I think I ever have in my career, which is fantastic.
Wow. Hats off to you and everything that your team is doing. I think if more people replicate that and, help connect with their employees, it's going to go a long way. Mark, do you want to take that question, please?
Yeah,
Mark's
absolutely.
Plan B Group.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, carrying on from what Ted was saying, certainly from a Plan B group perspective, we engaged with our team from the outset and sort of put in I hate to use the term because it's been overused at the minute, but put in a sort of new normal as far as the working day was concerned. Obviously, everyone had to adjust immediately to communicating and motivating each other. So we started twice weekly Be Live sessions through our social media platforms where we were showcasing our skills and using the time wisely to research, to motivate and to challenge each other. And they became very motivational, but very exciting platforms because people have now got the opportunity to research, to think about what the landscape is going to be like when we do all come out of this, and the impact that it's going to have on the event industry and our own personal roles. And from that, we've been working on a lot of digital platforms, something which is an area that I will hold my hands up and admit to know very little about. And it's, you have to come up to speed. You have to look at how creatively we can work to integrate digital platforms and virtual events into what we're doing in the short term, and developing into the longer term how we can creatively implement these new ways of working.
But coming back to the question, what specifically, just like the top 3 things that Plan B Group is doing to support your employees, and as a result, because your employees are very much a part of the overall events industry, just top 3 things that you're currently doing?
As I say, we've got the Be Alive sessions. We've also, we're launching this week an initiative called My Home Videos, which is, it's community led, but also staff led as well, where when people have got more time on their hands, rather than the sort of the TikToking that a lot of people are doing, we're trying to look at creative routes for and platforms for our staff and also for our suppliers and for our partners. And the third thing is communication and connection. We very much see this as a collaboration moving forward, and it's important that we share knowledge, and that's been a key sort of initiative and driver that we're doing, both internally for the staff and for clients and customers as well.
I understand. So what about you, Sujoy? And thank you for that, Mark. That's really helpful.
No worries.
So Sujoy, we can't really hear you. And this is sort of going back to sort of the technological things. As you can see, everyone, moderator as well as one of the presenters, sort of still having technological issues. And this is the world that we're in right now. We're sort of limited by how good the technology can be. Sujoy, do you want to try again? I can see your mic's live. No, we can't hear you. Can lip read, but not hear you. So I'll tell you what, while we're figuring that out, maybe we'll just hit refresh, Sujoy. So going back to you, Ted, some of the tips and tricks, if you would, we're using a lot of platforms, and this is one of them. And we use a lot of platforms in terms of technology as well as stuff that's not related to technology. Do you have any sort of tips and tricks that you've figured out and you've learned in this past 9 weeks since this whole situation kicked off?
Well, first of all, I'll say I think it's a miracle that Sir Joy and Wilbert are the technical guys and the digital guys. Can't get on the call, so I think there's hope for us all. I've only discovered Deliveroo in the last 6 weeks, so maybe I'm a tech guy all of a sudden.
Yes, we can hear him now, Sir Joy. Yes.
So I had to switch to Plan B.
Everyone's cracking that joke, Mark. Okay, so Sujoy, I'm so sorry, Ted. Sujoy, do you want to just grab that question? What is your team doing support each other and the industry as a result?
Yeah, well, of course, there's lots that going on with what has happened right now. And first of all, Ramadan Kareem to everyone. With the current situation, there's been a lot of change in the way things were planned and envisioned for several of our verticals and businesses. But one of the main things what we do is tech and content. But having said that, there are specific divisions that always have been ahead of the game, and the rest are on field or in departments are just client servicing. So we've introduced a new level of trainings for the virtual space. It's open to anyone from admin, from production, from any of our divisions to participate now in these trainings, which earlier were very specific to departments. So we've opened the doors to all departments to come and engage in these trainings, and we've now reintroduced beginner level trainings for many of our tech solutions that are online. Our software division has been ramped up. The team has been grown larger. We've given the option for staff to move departments, get involved with the virtual team, get involved with our software team, get involved with content. And for that, we're offering the trainings free of cost with access to a lot of material for them to improve their skills and get into advanced workshops then with things like that we are showcasing through the virtual space. And on the other hand, we're also doing open to public training. So our photography and videography division has now basically just started a YouTube page, which is basically training people out there on photography and tips and tricks. And we'll be launching a lot more. So we are encouraging staff to get involved from home in creating their own tutorials for their area of expertise and sharing that with the industry. And we're investing a lot in enterprise level software so that not just a few, but everybody in the organization can get access to these learnings. And last but not the least, the motivation that there is hope, and we're definitely going to come out of this. What has started has to end, and that will definitely bring us to recovery very soon. For that reason, we've been open and sharing our financials and our current plan of action and how do we plan to come out of this situation, giving them the confidence that the shareholders and the people backing the organization are not going to just give up. So with that kind of recovery plan, it definitely motivates our offices globally that there is definitely support from the headquarters in Dubai, and we will definitely come out of this together, and the industry will revive and come back big with a bang.
Thank you so much, Sujoy. And I think I see we have Naji finally back.
Yes,
we can hear you,
yes.
Naji. Welcome back.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's good to have you with
Thank
us.
you. I saw you were enjoying taking my role, but no, my friend, sorry, not for long. This is my place. I'm the moderator. Thank you so much. Sorry for that. But this is technology. Later, I'll ask our tech experts about the trust in technology. So since this happened and it's timely, Anil, if we can please put the first polling question to engage with our audience, hear from them, have the first question, if possible, about remote working.
Absolutely.
Or working from home.
Yep. So
then
here
we'll continue the discussion.
I will put on your screen now the question. So again, if you are on your phones, I'll request for you to be on your phones. Go to menti.com, type in the code, and if you're already there, just refresh, and you can start reacting. So the question is this. Do you think that remote working will become the normal practice once the COVID-19 outbreak ends? Over to you, Naji.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question we ask ourselves every day. Until when we're gonna stay like this? And even if the crisis ends, are we gonna rethink the daily commute to offices? Are we gonna rethink the sizes of the offices? This is something that will appear with day. But let's see our audience. What do they think? I see that the percentages are more or less similar. I guess we got most of the answers. So if you stop here, Anil, we have close to 60% of people saying yes, remote working will become the normal practice, versus 41% who say no, this will not be the normal practice. So basically, we're gonna go back to our offices. Well, it's subjective depending on what you do. Maybe what's your field, and how long do you commute every day to work. So this will bring me to Ted Bloom from Dubai Live. How are you, Ted?
I'm good, thanks. Najee, nice to have you back, and your hedge as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm here now. So, Ted, for those who know you closely, they know how passionate you are about the industry, but most about the people in the industry. So, with this crisis, with this pandemic, disrupting the way we work, and maybe we do business for the future, many people are saying, for the events industry in specific, if an event does not have a very strong, appealing reason to attend, people may choose not to attend physically that event. You being an expert in creating journeys for people, for the visitors, for the delegates of any conference or an event, what would you be working on in the next for your future events to make those events really a place where one cannot miss to be present physically? Not talking about how can this be compensated through technology, because it will be a compensation, but in real life, what would be the highlights of the future of events to make them must attend events?
Well, first of all, I think that we're quite fortunate in this region that we have forward-thinking organisers. So I think some of the event environments we create are world-class already. But I also think that, having been in the industry for a quarter of a century, I think we've been talking about using digital better since the turn of the millennium. So I think the issue that most organisers have is, we all know that this is a life, not a career, and it's a life that involves a treadmill that's very hard to get off. And I think now we're forced to step off. We're actually looking at these things in more detail. And for me, I'm not technical. I'd like to think I'm a little bit creative, and I enjoy creative. But I think one of the most empowering things that I'm seeing at the moment is that all these great organisers, all these great minds, stepping off the treadmill and working out how you work and fuse digital with physical presence in events. And I think Mark can probably tell me if I'm wrong. I think some of the custom build companies are already there with activations on their stand. We've certainly seen a move from, I think it's around 10% of stand build budgets previously were around content and digital activations, and that's moving nearer 25% now. And I think that's a true barometer for the way the industry is going to go. And I don't think physical presence will ever be replaced with digital, and neither do I think it should be. But I think the two can complement each other brilliantly. And I think positive of this difficult situation is we will come out of this with a much better product, whether it be for exhibitors, sponsors, delegates, anybody in the event space. I think we will be better as an industry.
Yeah, this rightly said, Ted. So you spoke about integration of technology with the physical experience. Do you think that your team, let's talk about your team, is ready to do this integration and to do this change and adopt this kind of change? Are they ready, and how would you help them to be ready and use this time of lockdown to get ready for the next phase?
Najee, I'm not very technical, so what I can say is that as we go through this period, for all of us as leaders, change management is one of the most difficult things that you will do. And I think the more experience we have of doing these things, the more you bring people along on the journey. So most of what we do now, 90% of it is through the virtual space, for want of a better description. So if I give you one example, on Thursday, we had a workshop via a platform that Osama, our head of digital's created, where we had 180 staff building our soundtrack for how we're going to build and come out of this process and this horrible disease. and how we're going to get better. And I think that digital engagement, it actually means that we're proving to ourselves that it works. And if you prove it to ourselves that it works, it means you can take it to the market, and it's less difficult for us to manage that change. So I think for all of us as leaders, in the short term, while we're in this horrible time, there's lots of positive things happening that will mean that we will be better, as I said before.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Ted. Mark, I want to ask you about, like you're an expert in international hospitality and entertainment events. How do you see the COVID-19 outbreak and this great lockdown that we are experiencing will impact the live entertainment events in the future? Will the trust of audience be restored after this crisis?
Look, I think we all agree that it's certainly not going to be a case of we switch the lights back on and everything goes back to normal. I don't even think that it's going to be a reset. I think it's a restart for the whole industry. The first thing you've got to do is get the confidence back with the consumer and the attendee to any event or any conference. And I totally concur with what Ted was saying. We've now got to merge these platforms of digital platforms and live entertainment and interaction and improve the content. And the key message that is coming out right now is that I go back to what I was saying before. It's all about collaboration and knowledge sharing. We even use this platform with Informa and the Middle East Event Awards last year. Our the CEO and owner of Plan B, Mr. Harmeet Singh, was talking about the importance of collaboration moving forward, and collaboration versus competition. The only way that we're going to be sustainable as an industry is by working together, and is by sharing knowledge and by improving these the standard of the technology and the digital solutions, and integrate that with the creativity of the content and entertainment.
I see. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Sujoy, Mark spoke about collaboration, and you're known for being very passionate about innovation and the future in general. You have always integrated the latest technologies in the events you used to do. So how does the next phase look like to you? And if you want to support Mark and Ted with their events on the technology side, what would be your view on this? What there should be the must-dos and don'ts in the next phase, if I may.
Well, let me start with one thing: is technology requires an adaptation rate, which has been a very slow process over the last decade. There's a lot of tech that was out there, but not really. It was available, but not used in events to that extent. Just like today, we wouldn't be on this topic. Probably be at an exhibition, hosted by you guys, and would be on a live talk show. But now we're online. This has forced people to get online and get familiarized with the tech. So due to the current situation, one of the big advantages is the adaptation rate has been accelerated. And now due to this situation, everybody's getting more familiarized with software, with tech, with using their mobile phones more than ever, using their laptops and machines, and understanding a lot of other things on the back end rather than just your emails and your regular apps. So I absolutely agree with the fact of collaboration. There has to be a huge amount of collaboration, the use of IoT, Internet of Things, and creating solutions that integrate. A lot of people I notice are trying to go to innovate and create something new. That should not be the direction, because you don't create new platforms. When you have create our own venue. We go to the venue, and then it's our expertise that makes the event what it is and makes it unique. So that's what we need to do, I believe. Collaborate with the people out there and the platforms that are available right now, and make the best of it, just create on how to innovate collaborative efforts of bringing cross platforms together and bringing these platforms in a way together to meet your audience's requirement. And depending on what's the primary objective of the brand or the client you're giving a solution to. So, and in the long run, what's going to happen for sure is these lines are going to blur between virtual events and real events, because there's such a lot of adaptation over this period, and this is going to continue. This is not the end of the virtual space when we are away out of this pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a core element of every event, I believe, and there will have to be a whole new level of innovation, like Marcus mentioned, that it's not about getting back to normal. There's going to be a whole new normal, and this new normal, we have to accept this positively with the increased levels of hygiene, public safety. Our whole focus as event organizers are going to be changed to people-centric. We'll have to first think bottom-up, understand what is going to be the safety standards and how are we going to let people engage, minimize the element of touch, because everybody's worried about the second wave. And this is COVID-19. There could be a COVID-22, there could be COVID-25, So
speculations are everywhere. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and one of the good things about our industry, especially in the UAE, and I'd like to say this very proudly, that Dubai and the UAE responds very quickly, and has it's earned its global position to be the responding people on the first step, always taking the lead, always being the first to respond. With such standards in place, there's a big advantage over the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Because we are going to come back much stronger and bigger, and it's going to give much more assurance to people, even for destination management companies, to choose UAE or Dubai as a destination, because they know that the standards that we follow here are much higher than many parts of the world. And with the regulations in place, things are going to move really quick, and we just need to adapt and live with the current situation, evolve from it, and collaborate and work. So together. That's the word of the day. Collaborate, cross-platform, and work together in getting the industry back.
Okay. So Joy, thank you. Wilbert, you can hear me. Welcome back. So Joy spoke about a transitional phase that might be blurry now. I want to have your view, please, on that. You, having been an event organizer for a number of years, and now you're a technology supplier to the industry in registration, and maybe InfoSalons was amongst the first, or maybe the first, to provide facial recognition registration in the Middle East. And this is, part of the requirements in the future to reduce the physical touch point between, visitors and exhibitors, or all attendees, to avoid, any hygiene or health issues. So I want to ask you, being on both sides, Wilbert, do you see things differently? Do you have? Let me put it this way: what would be the top requirements for gaining back the trust of exhibitors and visitors to bring them to the events, knowing that the events were accused of, of being places to accelerate the distribution of viruses? So, what's your view on this end?
So, thank you, Naji. When what I learned as organizer is closely looking at what are you matching, what demand supply or buyers, suppliers, or other people, let's say in the supply chain, who are you matching? So there's a lot of technology, and yes, there's the blurred line, but what should never be blurred is looking at the attendee. And but my background is marketing, I always look at the visitor first. What is the need of the visitor, and how are you solving that demand? How can you reach out? How can you really get into the needs of the visitor? And there's the demand for information, for networking, and yes, for physical will always be there. Right now, we can't come to that physical platform, and therefore you see new technologies becoming more important. technologies that always have been there, but technologies that are now becoming more imminent. So you'll see from webinars to virtual events to hybrid events, but I still think the number one attention point is the visitor. What is the need? How can you really get to the visitor, and how can you get them connecting to exhibitors, to speakers, to other visitors? So I think quality is becoming more important because we, as an industry, and and because I've been an organizer myself, I think I can say that a bit out loud. We've been looking too much at quantity. The press release after a show is, hey, we had 90,000 visitors. That's 5,000 more than last time. We did a great job. Fantastic. I think it really needs much more to that, because those 90,000 visitors we might not get. But I think that was never the point. I think the point is what kind of people come to an event, and what are they exchanging in terms of business, knowledge, etc. And now we can still do that. We still do that here virtually. We are human beings, so we like it physically. So these hybrid elements are becoming more. And I think actually what we get out of this from an industry and also from technology, so from organizer and technology, is, hey, maybe this gives us a chance to get more into a 365 relation with our audience. Because when you walk out of a show before, the first screen you see is, hey, thank you for visiting, see you next year. Even on day one, you could see that. See you next year, not even tomorrow.
That's 365 communication.
We have the opportunity to now say, hey, come and see us at our website, see on the ongoing matchmaking, see you on the webinar or on the virtual event next time. So I think that's what the key point will be, is look more at the visitor and engaged much broader.
Wilbert, you touched on one important topic, that is matchmaking using artificial intelligence driven engines. But the question here is, and this is a question also from the audience, do you think people are ready to, our exhibitors and visitors are ready to adopt such technologies and adapt to them, while they are used to coming to events, exchanging business cards? I've seen in my previous experience that the adoption was not more than 30%, and it wasn't on the C or top level. It was, it was a task given to, admin staff to arrange those meetings based on smart recommendations. So whose responsibility is this to educate exhibitors and visitors? And what if they don't adopt it?
I think I've seen collaboration a few times on the chats. So I think this needs a collaboration. In the end, the driver's seat is with the organizer. That is the entity that communicates to visitors and exhibitors most. So it's engagement of the organizers, of the team, of marketing and sales. When the sales team of a show organizer talks to their exhibitors, they should also talk about these functionalities and not just square meters. So it's an engagement on organizer side. I think a better one is needed, but it's also working with the technology providers and creating good campaigns and signage on site and throughout campaigns.
Showing the
value. If you like. On the adoption, we're seeing more and more people using the technologies. But maybe back to that visitor, if you look at what kind of types of visitors, we did for a couple of shows, really cluster analysis and personas, you see that you have people that come to network, people that come to learn, but also people that just come to browse, that have interaction. We can see that through lead retrieval with maybe only 10 exhibitors, spend 50 minutes at a show and they go. Those people will probably never ever download the app, and actually that technology would not answer to the need of those people. So we need to look at the networkers, the connectors, the learners of the audience that we give technology for first. And I think they really adopted, they needed, they love that.
Yeah, of course, and the ongoing dialogue is very important, as you rightly said. Before I continue with the questions from the audience with our speakers, Anil, if you are with us, please, I would like to run the second polling question about the business model change, if possible, to run it through our audience and hear from them.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm always here. Always online. Here we go. So here's the last poll. Have you changed your business model in any way to navigate this crisis? And for those that have newly joined, please grab your phone, go to menti.com, type in this code at the top. Over to you, Naji.
Yep. Thank you, Anil. So we're getting the responses coming in. So the majority of the answers say yes, partially. So this is good about the industry, is that we are resilient, we are agile, we adapt somehow quickly, and we are innovative. I think the answers here describe those traits in the exhibition industry people. So now if we stop, so we are at 61% of people said yes partially, and 13% said yes entirely. Ted, I would like to go back to you on this. How quick do you think we can be, or how agile can we be in adopting new norms of doing events besides the technology? I'm not asking about the technology. It's about the behavior. It's about the experience we create to our people on site. How do you see the industry moving on that end? Are we really getting ready for a change, or are we just waiting to go back to normal?
I think there might be an interim scenario. You know that Wilbert and I were talking before we actually came onto this webinar about what might happen in the short term. I know that we're talking internally and with external organisers about what that model looks like. Obviously, there are rules and regulations, as Mark said, around social distancing. So it might be that we end up with island sites in halls with wider aisles. It might be that we're only allowed to run at 30% capacity, so that iconic picture of Gulf Food or Jitex with all those people in the concourse might be a thing that goes away in the short term. But I think then matchmaking is going to be really important, as Wilbert said, and I think increasing, because we need to still return the ROI to the exhibitors, and the visitor experience needs to be better than ever. So I think we're going to really have to use technology to make that happen. So for as an example, as I've said, I ran a registration company for a year, but that's only because there was nobody else that GS to do it at the time. But I think one of the things that I think that might happen is that you will actually register your interest in an event, and then you might get invited to that event based on your demographics and your relevance. So that 30% that are invited might well be better quality that can deliver the ROI to the exhibitor base. And as a short-term fix, that might work. I agree with Wilbert completely. I think, I come from that world where we were ABC audited, and every organizer talked about how many tens of thousands of visitors they had, and that was the benchmark. And I think the industry is going to get smarter to that, and I think that exhibitors, we're going to be competing for marketing budgets which are going to be shrinking. So we have to deliver value as an industry. So I think we all have to work and collaborate to make that happen.
Great. Thank you, Ted. A question to you, Mark, and this time from the audience. So someone says we do live in ruthlessly competitive markets. Seeing more collaboration would be great. How do we incentivize this, and how do we make this a reality? So again, a point on collaboration. How do you think this will happen? What are your asks as an event producer, whether from government, whether from venues, from tech companies, from regulators? What are your asks?
Look, I think that there's no doubt going to be a lot of casualties in regards to venues, in regards to entertainers. I mean, the hospitality industry has been decimated at the minute, and it's heartwarming that people are performing and using digital outlets to to be as creative as possible. I think that as we enter into a new phase of events, and we keep talking about collaboration, we have to be able to, have the key deliverables of the purpose of the event and integrate all the different aspects from a safety point of view, from a target audience point of view, and from an entertainment, content, and engagement point of view. And therefore, people have to sort of know what their skill set and purpose is on that. So, whereas we've got an abundance of venues to choose from at the minute, I think people will be very selective with their venues moving forwards to ensure that they've got the right technology, AV, production, and that's where, unfortunately, there will be casualties with some of the smaller niche businesses, because people will have to work together to produce the best show, performance, piece of entertainment or event, and obviously it's got to be backed by the right venue, the right partners, the right sponsors.
Yeah, I see. Thank you, Mark. Wilbur, back to you. I wanted to ask you, do you think that conferences are more likely to go virtual than exhibitions, or maybe live events than or conferences than live events than exhibitions? What's the order, in your opinion, for the necessity of going virtual or the necessity for face-to-face, knowing that we all need to interact as humans, human to human? We're not fully used to interacting human to machines, not as of yet. So do you see that conferences are more likely to go digital than exhibitions?
I think not, because I think with conferences, the networking is much more important than when it comes to live events or trade shows. So I think we really have a hunger for meeting physically and networking and chit chat, which you do much less over a webinar or over Teams or Zoom. So I think actually conferences, you'd see them coming back first. Also because there are less number of people, so it's easier to make them safe during COVID and post-COVID, because it's on one end, hey, is it government allowed? Is it venue okay? But it's also the comfort level of the attendee. I think that's most important. If people are not comfortable meeting each other, then nothing happens. But I think for conferences that would come back, and I think those people, and that coming back to my point on what kind of visitors do you have, I think the networkers and the learners, they go to exhibitions, but they definitely go to conferences. So I think those people will also embrace the technology earlier than the mainstream. And therefore, I'm probably most bullish on conferences. Live events and trade shows, I think live events will come back to happen, especially if there's a vaccine. Probably even we have a bigger need to just say yay and dance and sing than before. So I see live events coming strong, and trade shows as well. If there is a vaccine and people feel comfortable again, we go back to pretty much normal. And I think there will be coming back to Sujoy on a bit of a blurred line on technology. There will be more, let's say, hybrid elements. People that cannot or don't want to come to the event, we engage them via technology. It's not that difficult. It's the technology follows, doesn't lead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Sujoy, back to you. What platforms you think would be most needed and used in the next phase or in the future events to cope with all the changes we are facing? What are those platforms?
Well, there are several things that are out there in the market, but the most important is the cross-platform integration. because there is VR, but then there's the factor of the adaptation rate. There's the factor of people not wanting to wear something that someone else has worn. There is AR, which is rapidly evolving. At the CES earlier this year in Vegas, they announced VR glasses as slim and sleek as a Ray-Ban. So technology is evolving, and I think that's going to rapidly enter the market once things get better. It's about the collaborative effort from all organizations to allow open source code so that people can use APIs and do integration rather than trying to have exclusivity and try to control the market. That's never going to happen. Just like today, I'm sure many of us did not know about the Big Marker or GoToWebinar or so many other solutions. Everybody knew Skype. Suddenly, through this phase, we saw Zoom out there on the top of the charts. Nobody was very familiar with Zoom in the past. So that's what's going to happen with tech now. There's going to be a lot of outflow of solutions, and it's adaptation rate, being ready for those live events, and how it's going to integrate with each other to make it happen. For everyone who wants to go to the physical event and those who feel engaged at the event without having to be there, but not just watching it on a YouTube live, but being able to engage in some way.
And obviously, solutions will evolve as we move in time, because the customers will also dictate, what they want to see at an event. A question from Nini Aryon. What about team spirit? If you all work remotely in the future, can we keep the same level of trust and feeling if we keep working remotely? So maybe Mark, if you can touch on this, because I'm sure like your entire team is very passionate about live entertainment events. So if we keep working from home at least for the next few months, how to keep the spirit of the team high?
Look, I think it's a really good point, and it's something that can't be easily answered because we don't know how long this sort of next phase is going to take, the easing of the lockdown. But what I would say is that as we've been doing in our sort of our Be Live sessions through even through going on Facebook Live and connecting on things like Zoom, now is the time to learn a new skill set, new language, to educate yourself, to entertain each other, and that is, whether it's from a leadership point of view or whether it's from a team member point of view. One of the nicest things, I think, and most positive things that has come out of this situation is that people are probably far more connected with each other than they have been in so long, and it's so important to be positive, keep smiling, keep laughing, keep being entertained, and I think it's a case of more of the same. It will get better. It will, we're seeing the sort of phase restarting. Whether that accelerates or whether this becomes the norm for the next 3 to 6 months, who knows? But we've just got to embrace it positively and stay connected. And there's a real good community spirit at the moment out there. I can very much see it that people are supporting each other and understanding how difficult it is for so many people. Whether you're disconnected from family and friends, or not going out socializing like you used to do. It's important to stay connected and be positive. And I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but we are all in this together, and we're the sort of industry that will embrace challenges positively and find solutions for it.
Great. I want to ask you, please, one common question, but very briefly, if you may answer me. We've read about stimulus packages in the UAE to support the economy, and and a part of it was dedicated for SMEs, knowing that some of you are SMEs or have SMEs business. I wanted to ask each and every one of you: have you applied or benefited from any stimulus package so far? Maybe we start with Sujoy.
No, we've not applied for any such thing. We are still surviving on our crisis capitals. So over the decades, we've been always prepared for situations like this. Or as part of our group's initiative many years ago, and that's what we have dug into for the moment. And hopefully, it would allow us to sustain till the end of this year, till business is back to normal.
Yeah. Wilbert?
Not in the Middle East, because they're not that much supporting schemes from governments. In Australia, there's a JobKeeper program, offers $1,800 per month to keep people working. In China, we're active. There are quite some generous programs. So yeah, this part of the world is not that big in that from that support. But hey, there's also a tax-free environment, so I can also understand. So not in UAE.
Yeah. Ted?
Well, obviously, we're part of the DWTC enterprise, so being government owned. I'm not directly involved in some of the innovation that's going on, but I know we're collaborating with the organizer fraternity, and we've taken certain proactive actions regarding exhibitors already through Trixie's team. So I think it's ongoing dialogue. And I think, we're going to work in partnership with the organisers to make sure we get out of this as quickly as possible, but also as safely as possible.
And Mark, have you applied or?
No, we haven't. We've from a timing point of view, obviously we were affected certainly from a production and event management side of the business, but we managed to retain the staff for the time being and working, moving towards the digital platforms and moving towards the collaborations on a lot of the projects. And I think, on this point, a positive to look at is that there have been very few major events and conferences that have been cancelled. A lot have been moved to later on in the year or through to 2021. Obviously, we got the positive that it's further away now, but we've got something major such as Expo coming up as well. So I think, I reiterate the point that we've just got to change our business plans and we've got to change our key deliverables and the way that we work and remain positive that, the industry will come back, whether it be in a very different way, it will come back and those projects will take place at some level and some scale. So we just got to be creative about how we deliver them.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Actually, I'm mindful about time. Is it okay because we have a lot of questions, I will not keep you long, but do we have another 5-10 minutes, our speakers?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So, Mark, you said about, shows being cancelled, in the first or second quarter mainly. The third quarter, we're not sure about it, but there is quite a few good number of exhibitions that are still planned in quarter 4 2020. So when do you think the first face-to-face event will happen, knowing that last week an auto show in a big city in China took place with some hygiene measures. So what is your expectation of the next event, face-to-face event, to take place, the first one in the UAE?
As I say, we have to. It's a guesstimate at the moment. As it stands, Q4 is when people are talking about when we can hopefully have a start back up. But what we will have to do is absolutely work together because a lot of dates will now be clashing with what would have been major exhibitions or major events. And we have to see what's happening in the rest of the world as well, because you've got some of the sporting calendars when you think of things like Formula One, the race to Dubai golf, the rugby sevens, all of these major international events, if they are still taking place and whether the dates shift, we have to be mindful of not clashing and not spreading ourselves too thin. So look, the way I know
there is no one answer that fits all, Mark. It's all like we're we're all hopeful, to go back to real life and physical events. Thank you, Mark. Wilbert, on that end, do you have any expectations of the next face-to-face meeting to take place in the second half of the year, or third or fourth quarter?
I think you're asking all of us a difficult question, huh?
Yeah, the audience
it's
eager to hear from you.
To say, because our industry will be back on one of the last, so we need to first see the first ones going full back on, and we're not seeing that yet. Maybe a few smaller ones, but yes, it's too hard to say actually. Of course, I'm hopeful and an optimist, so I hope to see shows by end of September, October coming back in a certain shape and form. So that's what we hope for. That's the optimistic scenario. Of course, we work with realistic and pessimistic scenarios. I think we all do. I think we all like Excel a bit less nowadays with all the graphs and etc. But no, it's really hard to say. We hope that it's after summer coming back, but it depends on and here we are in an international environment. If travel is restricted, the trade shows will not happen because we stage international events here. As I said, we're active in Australia, China, and the US. In Australia and China, we'll come back early. It will be August, September, because they have a domestic market. They can do without international participants. We can't, and then I'm talking for trade shows. So that's going to take longer time. End of September, maybe, but yeah, Q4 is probably more likely.
Yeah. Ted, do you agree with Wilbert, with Mark, or you have a different view?
No, I agree with everybody. I think that the story is still to be told. I'm not sure whereabouts we are in this story. I think that's the problem for everybody. I just think the only thing that we can do is engage with clients, make sure we have fluid and flexible plans that can adapt to whatever the market is. Because the sooner we start getting shows out, the better it's going to be for everybody. So I think that's the overriding thought I have, is that we just need to be flexible and adaptable, and then let's get out of this as quickly as we can, because we know Dubai as a city is not going to risk the safety of international visitors or domestic visitors. So we need to be proactive with our thoughts and work within those parameters.
I see. So, Joy, let me ask you this in a different way. What would be your recommendation to restart with smaller events and rebuild slowly, or no, wait longer and go back to closer where we were in terms of sizes and number of people attending? What would be your recommendation here?
Well, if everybody follows the guidelines set forth by the entities that give us the permits, I'm sure smaller scale events which definitely induce a lot of guidelines on social distancing, that would make the user comfortable to even attend, is mandatory. Because if your visitors are not going to be there, or your users or your ticket buyers are not going to be feeling safe, there's no way that people are going to attend your event. So definitely starting in a small way makes sense, as long as everybody follows the guidelines and makes people feel safe. Because the last thing you want is a situation that marks that event as an issue in public, which means that would be a repercussion with a lot of people feeling negative about it. So it has to be a very slow and steady move, and of course follow the guidelines by the government and WHO, and keep your people and your audience as your main focus, that they feel safe and secure, and we take all the necessary measures to make the event safe for the people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, safety is a key requirement going forward. So thank you so much. I would love now to take one tip from you that you would give people, individuals, companies, SMEs or big. What would be the one tip and maybe a closing note from each and every one of you to the audience? We start maybe with you, Wilbert.
I would say stay fit. Actually, I lost weight and I'm much fitter than before the lockdown. So I keep on going. I have a treadmill at home. I'm happy to run outside. So stay fit, because then we have all the energy when things coming back, and they all come back all at once. So yeah, we need to be fit and healthy to keep that workload that's coming on us.
Physically and mentally, I think you mean, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, what's your top tip for the audience today?
I would say be creative and educate yourself. Now is the time to as I say, learn that skill and whether it's a hobby or whether it's work related. You know, I found webinars such as these and knowledge sharing not only fascinating, but it helps me be more creative. So when we do come out of it, we can be a bit more creative and a bit more proactive in our approach to work and life, and obviously be positive and be nice to people. It's something that I think we all forgot to do. We all got a bit too competitive and a bit too ruthless, and you know, especially during Ramadan, it's a time to go back to our roots, reconnect with people, and you know, motivate and make sure that everybody is mentally and physically fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. On that end, Mark, when can we expect the guidelines from the government to plan our H2 events? Do you have any expectations on having guidelines from the government, from the venues in the UAE, or nothing so far?
I think as we've touched on beforehand, they start in this phased approach. We've got to see how. I mean, even from the restaurant point of view, that some of them have started opening back up and working at 30% capacity. There's going to be a lot of trial and error with that. First of all, we're going to have to follow the guidelines of other places around the world, and unfortunately, you know, entertainment and the whole socializing will be the last thing that comes back. So we have to keep continually integrating and using the digital portals and outlets to engage and entertain each other and integrate that slowly. But yeah, realistically, I think we're looking at end of Q3, beginning of Q4 from a personal point of view.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So, Joy, what's your top tip until we meet again face to face? What would you like to say?
Besides the fact that I need to follow Wilbert's guide on losing some weight and staying fit, well, the most important thing I would say is collaborate. Don't try to, jump into new spaces. Each one of us are good at what we do, and we've been doing that for a few years now. Collaborate and work together. Look at options of coming together and innovating new solutions with cross platforms. I think, and that should be the norm for the next 6 months at least.
Okay. And Ted, before giving us your top tip and positive note, do you have any idea about when can we expect guidelines for the events to relaunch? I mean, being part of DWTC.
I think, as everybody said, I'm sort of playing our own ball with our own clients, but I think what can be said is that Dubai moves incredibly quickly. As things improve, we'll come out of this quickly. But I think also that they're unprepared to give false hope to people, which I think is quite right. For all of us communicating with our staff, I think one of the worst things you can do at the moment is give them false hope and say, that airports are going to open next week, so you'll be able to get your family back. I think it's much better to be realistic. And I appreciate the way the Dubai government are acting in this situation, because I think for all of us, we can plan and we can be ready, but let's not have any false hopes. And I think there's too much gossip and rumour that goes around the city. Let's act on facts. And the fact is at the moment that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. There are 500 new cases a day, roughly. So let's get out of this, and then I'm sure we can trust the government to do the right thing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Before I close, I would like quickly to tell Victoria and Sandrine, who said there is no female speaker on this panel. We have discussed this before we went live, and the Informa is doing a female empowering session on about the industry that will be announced I think in the next few weeks. So definitely we totally believe in the gender balance. Our female colleagues are great wherever they are, and this is just by coincidence that we have 5 male speakers now on this session. Again, panelists, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Informa, for putting this together. If I summarize, I would say let's remain resilient. Let's be agile. Let's stay close to our community and support them, support our teams in being productive, creative, and mentally strong. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay at home, and stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Ramadan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Naji. You've summarized everything really well. I just want to also point out that both the marketing manager and the producer, Jessica Freeman and Anju Hanish, behind this webinar are also women. So,
Anil?
behind every woman and all that. So thank you once again, Wilbert, Ted, Mark, Sujoy, and Naji, for your time, your thoughts, and for sharing knowledge. For the attendees, thank you for your patience, questions. We'll be in touch with you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anil.